The videos in today's online service have been pre-recorded in several places across Wurundjeri land. We'd like to acknowledge the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land that this service is being held on, and pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
Hi everybody, Jess and I would like to welcome you to our online version of the picnic service taking place in Bayswater on the 28th of November. If the weather is fine, we will be outdoors in the community garden. If the weather is inclement, we will be found indoors in the hall. This video does not replicate the community service exactly, but the essence of the messages is the same. We hope you enjoy the virtual experience of the community garden and hope you can visit it yourself someday. Now, over to Jess.
Our text today comes from Mark, chapter 3, verses 31 to 35. Who is my mother and who are my brothers? Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him and they told him, "Your mother and brothers are outside looking for you." "Who are my mother and my brothers?" he asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, "Here are my mothers and brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother."
In this passage, Jesus' family are gathered at a place where he was delivering his teachings to his followers. Jesus' family had come to take him home. At this stage, Jesus was not yet considered to be a Messiah. When responding to questions about his family, who indeed were they, Jesus alluded to the fact that his mother and brother were his earthly family, but his spiritual family were his followers gathered around him. Those who were united by common experience and interest, and by the shared goal of a Christian life. The truth of Jesus' message is this: whilst close family ties are beneficial in advancing God's kingdom and recreating God's kingdom on earth, true kinship is not only based on flesh and blood. Kinship and the collaborative environment it fosters can be found in many different types of communities, where common interests and goals unite people. We belong to more than one family. Humans are intrinsically social beings, designed to exist in communities and forge relationships with one another. The act of belonging to a tribe, working together to either simply survive, to enrich our lives, or to achieve a common goal, is something Temple Society members know plenty about. Today, Jess and I would like to showcase one of the Temple Society's projects, the Community Garden. The Garden project has brought together diverse TSA community members sharing the common interest of gardening to build, tend and nurture a beautiful community space. Like the goal of recreating the kingdom of God on earth, the Community Garden is a long-term project. Martina Eaton, the Temple Society care worker, will share some background information.
The Champion Community Garden, located in Bayswater alongside the Temple Society Community Hall, was developed as an offshoot of our emergency food relief service to give our community members, our clients at Champion and our volunteers an opportunity to grow their own food and come together in a welcoming and warm environment to create a beautiful space for people to participate in community life. It started in 2019. We received a grant from the Knox Community Garden, Knox Community Development Fund, and since then we've added additional beds, including this sensory garden bed, which has passion fruit in it, and other sort of vegetables and flowers, and as you can see, the sunshine and the rain has made it go absolutely bonkers. So anyway, this is our garden and we welcome anyone to come along and join in. And every month we have a working bee on Saturdays, and the beds are accessible for people from all backgrounds and abilities. We've got some beautiful celery growing at the moment, some kale and all kinds of foods. So yeah, come on down, get involved, have some pizza with us when we do our working bees, and we hope to see you there. Bye.
Apart from the joy of growing and nurturing beautiful flowers and yummy herbs and veggies, what can this garden project bring us? What can we learn from it? Some points we may consider. The garden first needed a good foundation. Garden beds needed to be built first, the soil prepared and made fertile. The garden required some background work or some labour and lots of consideration to get started. It needed experts to get it going, and then others prepared to follow the leaders to further the cause. The garden now requires people with passion and long-term vision to sustain it. It needs constant pollinators. The garden needs time and people with patience. The results are never immediate. The plants need time to establish. The garden needs to be tended daily, weeding, watering, harvesting, and so on. And the garden will not survive with long-term neglect. It needs regular nurturing, nourishing, fertilising. The actual garden itself is also a community of plants coexisting. All have the common aim of growing, setting seed, reproducing, and they do this alongside each other. There is plant kinship in a garden. But not all plants are the same. There are multiple species thriving next to each other. Indeed, some plants do better when grown alongside certain other ones. This is known as companion planting. Companion planting is defined as the careful placement of plants, especially vegetables and herbs, which have been shown to have beneficial effects on one another. Some plants make good companions because their roots grow to different depths, so simply do not compete with each other for water or nutrients. What if we transfer the concept of companion planting to humans? Companion living, communal living. Communal living, not where we necessarily live in the same house, suburb, town, or even country, but where we do best when not competing with each other, but when complementing each other. Where we live alongside those with a goal like our own and work with like-minded people. Where we have the same ultimate aim, but each individual is important and recognised for their unique strengths, talents, attributes and characteristics. Sometimes these companions, these folk, may be our flesh and blood family. Other times these people may be our spiritual family or the other communities in our life, our faith communities, TSA, our hobby clubs, our sporting affiliations, an endless list. How would we sustain such a living human community? Actually, not so differently as how we look after our gardens. We protect our garden and plant communities as best we can, with scarecrows, maybe, so that each plant is able to grow into its fullest self. We sometimes have to weather the storms, deal with adversity, pests, aphids, caterpillars. We tinker and rearrange things until we get them right. The soil pH, the amount of water, the position of the plants. We prioritise what is important to have in our gardens and what can we wait until next year to plant. We don't always see what goes on underground. The roots, the fungal networks. There are things unseen. We occasionally adorn our gardens with funny but meaningful items, which we will be doing later on with our rocks and any items that people are bringing for our face-to-face picnic service. We have plans of how to continue to grow our communities. We have succession, leaving some plants and seeds for future growth. Of course, all these considerations can be attributed to human communities too. We protect ourselves, not with scarecrows necessarily, and we encourage each other to grow into our best selves. We deal with adversity, not just aphids, maybe COVID, earthquakes, bushfires. We've had many. We rearrange things and adapt. We think they're here of the structure of the TSA focus groups. COVID restrictions. How much have we learnt to adapt in the last 2 years? We constantly prioritise and reassess. How in the last year in particular we have valued human health above the economy. We often don't see much of the background work until it becomes important. Supermarket shelf fillers, cleaners, and other essential but often unseen workers come to mind. We fill our lives with meaningful and funny things. And lastly, we develop contingency and succession plans. When it all comes together, we establish thriving communities capable of sustaining and nourishing us all in a multitude of ways. We welcome others to our gardens, our communities, hoping that they too will see the beauty in them that we do and find some nourishment within. We come to our gardens to seek solace, comfort, guidance, beauty, and to fully engage all of our senses. Sight, we look at the flowers and the new growth. Smell, we smell the flowers. Touch, we experience the different textures of leaves, bark and soil. Hearing, we hear the insects, we hear the rain. And taste, all those delicious edible plants. We come to create hope for the future, to share and grow, to nourish and be nourished, to explore and experiment, to be connected and rooted to something, and to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Christine Cox-Hill, our community garden coordinator, will now share some of her experiences in establishing and continuing her work with the community garden. Over to the other Christine.
Hi, my name's Christine and I'm down at the community garden down here that we established in 2019 at the end of the year. And basically, if you want to come have a look inside the garden, we've got some bird nests that we actually, Rolf kept from our big tree that we're going to create into an archway. So having that as a nice focal point for the garden would be nice. And yeah, so basically we established the garden and we started off with just 3 garden beds, and now as you can have a look around, we've got 11 garden beds. We're going to create an archway. We've got 2 blackboards for us to draw on to say stuff to the community. Oh, and also, if you want to follow me over here, we've got 3 sensory gardens. So the sensory gardens we established mainly for children, so they can smell, see, and touch. So we've got a whole lot of herbs. At the moment we've got parsley going to seed, so that'll create some nice environment for the insects, which will create flowers and pollen for bees. And then we've got a bunch of edible pansies and violets. And then we usually have some vegetables in here as well, but it's coming to the next season, so we're going to plant some more. And then if you come in closer, you can see little interactive things for children. So we've got dinosaurs, we've got animals, and then we've also got fairies in the front garden. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a mix. And yeah, and you can see summer's coming up and we've got passion fruit blooming. Yeah, so it's a nice little community garden. So we would love to see everybody down here, and yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody.
Being a plant in a garden is very alike to being part of a community. How maintaining and working on a real-life garden can reflect how we grow, learn, and thrive amongst one another. I'd like to take this opportunity to look inwardly at what could be described as our individual inner gardens. Imagine this: your feet being the roots that are connected to the earth, grounding us with each step that we take. Your legs being the stem of what is growing within us, your torso being the center, and your arms being the offshoots, branches, or petals. What do you see your plants looking like? Could you be a herb that contributes to flavour of life, giving off an exotic aroma, adding zest? Or perhaps a tree, solid and grounding in your beliefs, reaching further and growing ever more, allowing protection beneath your branches of love. If you close your eyes to picture all this, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Perhaps this vision changes as our emotions change. There are definitely times when I feel like a Venus flytrap, snapping at everything that crosses my path. Yet other times, a sunflower, beaming yellow on radiant days. As with a real-life garden, Just like our community garden, working bees need to happen to maintain it. Making sure the garden beds are healthy so that the garden inside can bloom. Removing the weeds so they don't overrun the plants that we are trying to grow. Watering and feeding the flowers so they can blossom and flourish. It can be said that negative thoughts and emotions are the weeds of our inner garden. They may start off small, lurking under that big flower over there with the colourful petals. But if we ignore them and let them roam free, soon they start to slowly take over the rest of the garden. And some weeds are really pesky, needing some extra strength to yank them out. The polarity is, some weeds are also necessary and good. Weeds can act as a shield for the soil from the sun, protecting both insects and microscopic organisms from sunlight. Their roots stabilise the soil, creating a secure environment for life, while their stems trap organic matter, which in turn breaks down in the soil and provides sustenance for insects. They can also be composted, being broken down so as not to go to waste, helping to renew and restore whatever the compost may be used for. If we then relate that analogy back to our emotions, consider this. Have you ever had a really good cry over a difficult situation, only to come out of it on the other side feeling better, calmer, almost renewed? Nurturing how our body deals with trauma and pain with love and compassion is like composting weeds from a garden to use as mulch on a new garden bed, allowing new life to grow. So how do you tend to your inner garden? Are there lots of weeds growing, ready to be pulled out? Or perhaps you have a whole herb garden, ready to add flavour to whichever dish life serves you up. A beautiful rose garden, sweet smelling and pure, or even a whole rainforest with wise trees in depth. It would be interesting to note the next time you're in your real garden, how you could relate that to your inner garden. Please join me for this prayer. Dear God, we rejoice and give thanks for earthworms, bees, ladybirds and broody hens, for humans tending their gardens, talking to animals, cleaning their homes and singing to themselves, for the rising of the sap, the fragrance of growth, the invention of the wheelbarrow, and the existence of the teapot. We give thanks. We celebrate and give thanks. Amen.